So we're going to start our work on transformations, and we are going to start with talking about two specific types of transformations. One is called a translation, and a translation is taking a graph. So we'll just make up a graph here as y is equal to x squared, our parabola. And a translation means that we're going to actually shift it. So we could shift it up, we could shift it down, we could shift it left, or we could shift it right. So it's a shift. And then we're also going to talk about reflections. And reflections are specific to over the x-axis or over the y-axis. So we're going to talk about each one of those, and then you'll have a chance to practice in class. So we're going to start with example 1. Graph the function f of x is equal to x squared for the domain of -2 to 2. So remember, these are x values that were being given here. This is our interval notation for domain. So I'm going to start by creating a table of values. And I'm going to use the actual numbers that were given to us. How do I find the y values? Well, I simply take that the -2, and we plug it into our formula. So we have -2 squared, which is going to give us 4, -1 squared, 0 squared, 1 squared, and +2 squared. And then we can make the coordinates of that. I'm just going to highlight the coordinates. So the x value of the coordinate and the corresponding y value of the coordinate. Now the question asks to graph, so we're going to graph it. And I'll do my slightly less than accurate sketch. So -2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And -1, 1. 0, 0. 1, 1. And 2, 2. And I'll join them up. And the graph does not continue because the question actually terminated it beyond -2 and 2. So we've done the first part. Then it says the graph of G is obtained. So this is our graph of F. And then it's saying, go ahead and graph G. I need a different color. Have it gray. And what we'll do is we'll transform this 3 units down. So the transformation that we're doing is specifically called a translation. And we're going to take each point and move it down by 3. It doesn't matter which one you start at. And this is called g of x. So we have both graphs. How are the equations, domains, and ranges related between the two functions? So I'm going to start with the domains and ranges and come back to the equation because we don't actually have an equation yet. So if we look at the domains, let's start with f. So the domain was actually given in the question. And then for G, the domain, it's actually the same. It doesn't go any smaller than -2, and it doesn't go any larger than +2. So the domains have remained unchanged. Now let's look at the range. For f of x, the lowest y value is 0, and the highest y value, we can look at the graph or we can look at the table of values, is 4. And for g of x, the range, the lowest value is -3, and the highest value is 1. So look and compare the ranges. if you can see, the lower the minimum of the range has actually decreased by 3. And the upper of the range has actually decreased by 3. And that's because the whole graph shifted down by 3. So how do we show that as an equation? Well, what we do is we take our x squared, because that's our parent function, and we're simply going to subtract 3 to it. Let's actually make a table of values and do a test point. If we take -2 and we plug in to the equation, we would get 4 minus 3, which is equal to 1. Let's see if that point is on my graph. There it is, right there. You can go ahead and do the other test points too. A translation, so here's some verbiage for you. A translation like this one is a particular kind of transformation of a function, one that shifts each point of the graph in the same direction. So it could be up, and it could be down. So for the case that we're talking about. Other kinds of transformations of the function can reflect across the x or stretch or compress. So we have multiple different types of transformations, but right now this was an example of a translation. So our vertical translation, meaning that the y values change, means that we take the original function and we add or subtract whatever that transformation is, so that translation up or down.